Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello, good morning, and a very warm welcome to you, even though it is really cold this morning. So, as promised, I am up on the plot, and I'm going to record today's episode from here. I much prefer doing this, but as I think I've mentioned before, I think the audio quality suffers a little bit, so apologies in advance for that. So I'm actually letting the chickens out with you this morning, and first chappie out is Kung Fu Moli, who's actually in disgrace because he managed to pick a fight with his brother on Christmas Day. Morning, young man. Yeah, you're a naughty boy. You are a naughty boy. Which was not the most exciting thing I've had to deal with on Christmas Day evening, but they're all fine. And we had, good boy, there you go. We had really, really strong winds here on Christmas Eve, like gale force winds. And some of the netting that's over the enclosure blew to one side. And Kung Fu Moli flew over the fence, through a hole in the netting, and went and picked a fight with Lion. So anyway, they're all absolutely fine, but it is quite chilly up here. Now here are some guys who do not care about the cold at all. The ducks have obviously got little down jackets on, and good morning everybody. Good morning. Ready for breakfast? Where is your breakfast? There we go. Whoa, hungry ducks. Let's go and see if we've got any eggs. Oh, no eggs this morning. Oh, that's a shame. We're getting about 2 a day at the moment, but they've obviously decided not this morning. No, nobody's done any eggs. Oh dear, never mind guys. Have a think about that for later. Okay. Right girls, are you coming out as well? Good morning. Come on girls, there we go. Hello everybody. Hello. Lots of hungry girls. Very fluffy girls. I wonder if they know something about the weather, because they are just enormous this winter. Right, let's see if we've got any chickens' eggs. No. Oh, right. Marvellous. Marvellous, guys. Thank you. What are you doing in there? Nope. Danny's helping herself to breakfast from the metal feed bin this morning. Right, thank you. Do you know, I've been reflecting quite a bit about Christmas now that it's all over, and it went in such a flash. I'm struggling actually to remember, and I was so busy I didn't even fill my journal in, which is a shame. It was just wild. I don't know about your Christmas. I spent all of Christmas Day in my work clothes because I went to do the chickens in the morning, and then when I came back I had so much to do that I didn't go and get changed. So I spent the whole day in my clothes that I would, work in on the plot. And then Boxing Day I spent most of the day in my pajamas because I had a really early start to sort the boys out. And it all just seems really chaotic. When I drive through town, I see all these lovely people just strolling really casually through town. And they're all smartly dressed, and they look really pretty and very relaxed and very tidy. And I just think, how have I gone so wrong that I am still rushing from A to B in my work clothes when everyone else seems to have time to do stuff? So I think if I make any New Year's resolutions this year, it's going to be better management of the diary, definitely better management of my time, so that it's not all such a huge rush. So come with me. We're going to go into the plot through my very fancy double gates, which is a fence panel chopped in half, and straight into the pathway, which still, you won't be surprised to hear, has an enormous buddleia right in the way, and some geraniums and some sedums, which still need to be lifted. Now, there's also at least half a dozen molehills, which is nice. They are at least following the path, which is progress. Mr. Mole hasn't come up in any of the actual beds yet, but I guess it's only a matter of time. Now, it's all looking pretty miserable and brown at this time of year. The chickens got in and polished off most of the perpetual spinach, which is actually recovering really well. It's quite quick to come back, that stuff, so if we just keep them out for a few days, that will recover nicely. There's some straw flowers that still need to be taken down, and the echinacea have pretty much vanished. I was going to put some markers up, but I think I will probably just remember where they are. And the next to them, the kale is looking absolutely stunning. Now, I did remember to cut some of that for Christmas Day lunch. It went in with the red cabbage and it was absolutely delicious. And it's so beautiful. It's such a rich, gorgeous, dark colour. It's the Cavallonero type. So that's doing really, really well. And then we sort of move into the perennial beds. So the plan was to lift everything in the perennial beds and move them over to the new area where Nigel lifted the turf for me, so I could put my baby perennials in. And I got sort of halfway through it and I thought, okay, this is going to be quite a big job and I've got a lot else to do. So I sort of left some things in situ and then I've tucked the new plants around them. So they've actually put on some lovely growth already. I'm just trying to remember what that one is. No, can't remember what that is. So I did quite a bit of planting without labels, thinking that I would remember, and of course I absolutely don't remember, and went to buy some labels and then haven't actually gone and labelled them, so I need to sort that out. The foxgloves are looking amazing. I've got a whole bed of foxgloves which I've been transplanting from all over the place, and these guys should all be flowering this year. They were babies last year and they are looking very, very promising. Lots of forget-me-nots. I'm not entirely sure where they've come from. They're doing really well. I've left them and then I'm going to move them in the spring. I quite like to have a bit of colour, but they are a bit of a nightmare because they self-seed absolutely everywhere. My astrantia are just sitting. These are the ones that flowered all at the wrong time last year. So whenever my lovely wedding and event florist had an event and wanted some, they weren't ready. And then literally 3 days later, they all popped up and flowered. So we played sort of hide and seek all year. I say last year, it was this year actually. It feels, after the winter solstice, I feel like we're in the next year already and we're not. So if I talk about last year, I actually mean 2025. And the dahlias are all fine. I think I've still got about 4 more to get in the ground, so I need to get on with that. I have some terrific nettle beds. So the bed where the nigella and the ami and the didiscus was, that has just been overtaken by nettles, and I thought I will just leave them in the ground over winter and dig them up in the spring. Otherwise I need to put loads of compost and loads of mulch down, and there's just a whole load of other things which need doing. I've got a few Achillea the pearl that still need moving into their new position. And then behind them is the perennial scabious. Oh, the mole's been here as well. He does like the pass. Interesting. So the perennial scabious, I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys do in 2026. I grew them from seed in February 25, and I was hoping that they would flower in the first year because absolutely everybody else did, and these guys weren't having any of it. So hopefully 2026 is going to be their year. So when we move over into the newly cleared area, this is looking a lot more promising. So the Achillea that I transplanted, lifted, divided, transplanted, they're doing absolutely fine. I think they're just absolutely bomb-proof, those guys. And then I moved the eryngiums over, so they're all in one group together. And then, something else. What was that? Gosh, I should know what that is. I do know what that is, just can't remember. And then what have we got? So there's a whole load of scabious which are still flowering, which I think is just absolutely extraordinary. I had no idea that they would flower so late in the year. And they're so pretty. And they're actually on the site of one of the paths now because I've rejigged things. But I thought, well, just out of interest, I'm going to leave them in the ground over winter. They can hold all the soil together and I'll just see how they perform. And do you know, they look absolutely beautiful, really, really healthy and lots of new growth. I don't think they know that we've got snow forecast for next week, but I'm not going to tell them. And so moving down here, we've got our, it's the royal we again, we've got a foliage bed. So Physocarpus in here, Pittosporum. What were these guys? Thank goodness for labels. Rebe sanguineum, Oregon snowflake. That looks really pretty. That's budded up nicely. And then masses of raspberries, which are not the thornless ones, so I'm not sure how I'll get on with those, whether the florists will like them or not. And then the Verbena bonariensis, which moved down here out of the way because it does get quite big. So those guys are fine. And then the little eucalyptus at the end. Oh, and my lilac. So I bought one lilac. And that's all budded up nicely as well. It's going to take ages for it to get to a decent size, but he can make a start down here. And then we have the hydrangea bed, which is not looking brilliant. They're all just looking like sticks, but I can see some new growth right on the very tips. So that is wonderful. You guys are going off to weddings next year. Yes, you are. All going off to weddings. And then we've got the peony bed. And these guys seem to have slowed down in their growth a little bit. About a month ago, I suppose, because it was so incredibly warm. There you could see there was about, I don't know, half an inch, between half an inch and an inch of new growth, which I was very excited about because it's just a sign of spring and things to come. But they have slowed down a little bit on their growth. And then finally in the last bed, which is the rose bed. So this is what I was planting up yesterday. I put some photos on a reel on Instagram and it was incredibly hard work. And I haven't done much like digging for ages. And started off with lots of excitement and lots of energy and put the spade in and just kept hitting stone after stone after stone. I don't think I got the spade in the soil once without hitting a stone, and some of them are enormous. So I've got a pile on the perimeter now of all these basically rocks that I've dug up, which is enough for the foundations of a small patio. So I managed to do each rose in 2.5 minutes, which I was quite proud of. It dipped down to about 3 minutes midway, and then I had a sudden rush of panic, really, that I wasn't going fast enough. So those guys are all in, and they got watered in, and they seem absolutely fine. And that's pretty much everything that's going on the plot at the moment. There's a cotinus around the corner that still needs to go in the ground, but he's absolutely fine. And some snapdragons in tubs. So I found these in a green waste bin the other day, and I thought I will have those. So I've planted them all up, and they're just sitting quietly, not in the soil. They're in these tubs with some leftover compost, and I thought I'll see what becomes of those guys. And the compost bins are looking great. I'm surprised I didn't have more material to go on there, though. I did think that they would be full by the end of the year, but they're not full. And there is a bit of leaf mould in there that I've thrown in because I didn't want them to be too green. You've got to get this balance between green and brown right. So they're slowly breaking down, doing their thing. And oh, here are the ducks. Hey ducks, what are you guys up to? You been for a swim? Have you? Well done. Right, well, I am going to get on with some more planting, and I will come back and do part 2 of this episode in a little while. I'm going to finish off the... Thank you, Roland. I'm going to finish off the A to Z of the year. So I think we've got M through to Z to do. So I'll be back to do that in a short while. Hello again, welcome back. You will notice the change in audio. I've actually decided to record the second half of this episode at home in the warm. I had a really, really busy morning on the plot this morning, which I'll tell you about in a second. But what I was supposed to start this episode by saying is that this is the 100th episode of the podcast. So I'm absolutely delighted that you are here listening to this. It's been quite a year. And I remember when I first started out and I put my first episode up, and there were absolutely no listeners whatsoever. And I thought, oh, shall I carry on with this, or is it just going to crash and burn? And then I thought, no, I'll just carry on. And then before you know it, you're doing your 100th episode. And I'm pleased to say that there are now over 16,000, or there have been 16,000 streams already. So I'm really, really delighted about that. Okay, so back to this morning. I was on the plot for half the day, and all of the roses are now in. So I've got 3 batches of them, and I'm very pleased that they all went in. It was incredibly hard work and so many stones, and I could have built more than a patio. Actually, I could have done the foundations for a house, I think, but it's done. And I did slightly give up towards the end, and there were some climbers that need to go up the sides of some of the old duck houses that aren't used anymore, but I need to weed at the base of them. So I've decided, in the interests of expediency, just to put the climbers in pots in compost at the moment. I don't have loads of them, but I just thought it's going to take me so long to do all the weeding and then get them in. And also I want to get the framework for them to climb and be tied into the sides of the structures before I plant them. Otherwise they risk getting trampled and knocked. Also got all my bearded iris in today. So they've actually been interplanted between the peonies, seeing as they're kind of, well, they are one-hit wonders. It's not mean to say that. So they're going to come up in about May time, and then they can just chill out amongst the peonies. I don't think they'll take any notice of the peonies, and I don't think the peonies will care about them either. So that's all worked out fine. So let's carry on with the A to Z of the year, which I started last Friday. And tonight we're going to finish off with the letters M through to Z. So the first one on the M list is mole. Now I've already talked about him, and as I was walking around the plot this morning, I kept seeing more and more molehills. So I have been collecting the little piles of earth, and it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing, like obviously not from a cruelty perspective, but wouldn't it be amazing if you could just have like a little farm of moles and they could just sort through all of your soil without destroying all your plants? That would be so cool. Now, the second M is for Monarda, aka Bergamo. And I love this plant. I bought some of this from Great Dixter when I visited years ago, and it's absolutely super. It does tend to spread around a little bit, which is not a problem in the garden. I love it. But I have one that is red, and I didn't want to put that up on the plot because I wasn't quite so keen on the red colours, although I can see how they'd be useful in the autumn. So I actually bought just one pale baby pink one, which was so stunning this summer. It is absolutely divine. It went off to the wedding on a boat, which was lovely. So definitely going to get some more Monarda for next year. They were just gorgeous. I just, looking at them from a structure perspective, they're just really interesting. Once you've stripped the leaves off, the leaves aren't anything special, but the flower heads are really unusual. And the other M I have is for Mathiola. Now this is the stocks, and I had a bit of a disaster with these guys. It's the first time I've ever tried to grow them, and I do find that the first year I grow anything, I often overthink it, and perhaps should just be more relaxed about it and just quick and not overthink things. But I think I spent far too much time overthinking these Mathiolas. I held them back for ages because of the droughts and the heat wave. So they spent far too long in trays as baby seedlings. And by the time I put them out, they went in an area of the plot that the soil was not so good. I didn't keep up with the watering, and they really, really struggled, but they didn't die. So I thought, oh, well, I'll just leave them there. And then by the time we got into the autumn, they did flower, but they sort of had some kind of virus. They also got eaten by something as well. I mean, the whole thing was just like a catalogue of disasters. And I'm wondering whether the seed was just a bit iffy. Or I mean, I take full responsibility for all the planting issues, but the fact that the crop came up and the leaves were all just looked like they were virus infected makes me wonder that there was something else going on there. But they did eventually flower, and they didn't look exactly like they were supposed to look, but they were very pretty. And I did cut a few stems and then thought, I don't think I'll bother with those. And then I thought, no, I refuse to be beaten. So they will be coming back next year. And I'm just not going to overthink them. I'm just going to sow them and forget about them. Now, the first N has got to be nettles. I'm an expert nettle grower. Obviously, I'm not really. It's the field, and they just love it. And I'm still racking my brains for something that I could actually do with them. I obviously make like the nettle feed, the nettle tea, and I have drunk it as a tea sometimes, but it wasn't actually very nice. So I've got quite a lot of them to remove from where they are. I've got one really, really super long bed, which is about 28 meters long. And at the moment, half of it is full of nettles. So I've got quite a bit of work to do there in the spring. And also for Nigella. Now, I grew this specifically for my lovely wedding and event florist. I don't think she actually asked for it, but she had a lot of blue in her weddings this year. So I was like, right, I'll do Nigella. It'll be amazing. And I didn't end up selling very much of it because I managed to miss the weddings that she wanted blue for. The Nigella just weren't ready. And then I thought, never mind, I'll just leave them and we'll have the seed pods. And then, of course, we had like an autumn of rain. So quite a lot of them just got moldy and rotted and they were no good. So all in all, bit of a disaster, really. And they did take ages and ages and ages to get going. So I'll have another go with those next year. And I'm not quite sure. Well, I suppose I've just described where I went wrong, but they should be pretty bomb-proof, those seeds. So I'm a bit disappointed that I managed to mess that up. Now, N is also for Nigel. Nigel is this turf lifting guy. And if you've been listening to all of the episodes, you will have heard me talk about Nigel. But if you've come in sort of towards the end, you'll have missed it. So Nigel was this gentleman that was on the plot one day and he was ferreting about. And I thought, oh, he's come to steal something. You know, it happens. So I went charging down, puffed myself up as large as I could be. And I was like, can I help you? And he was looking for something that the owner of the field told him to come and get. So we just got chatting and I was like, oh, what do you do? And he said, groundworks. I was like, wonderful. Have you got a digger? And he said, yes. I was like, marvelous. Could you lift some turf for me? So we agreed a price and some terms and he came and did it. And he actually came, I think, on the hottest day of the year that we'd had at that point. And I couldn't even tell you what month it was. It's all a bit of a blur. But he came with his digger. He worked really, really hard, scraped all of the turf off, left it in a really neat pile for me. He was just lovely. And it was like the simplest thing I've had done. And then the rest of the summer, obviously, I didn't do anything with the soil apart from just get the thistles out. Turns out I've got loads of creeping thistle in that whole area, which is an absolute pain. It's like whack-a-mole. You dig a bit up and then another bit just appears and another bit and another bit. So that's going to be, I think, a permanent battle to sort that out. And I was planning on putting all sorts of cover crops on, peas and everything, and the ground was just absolutely parched and nothing would have survived. I didn't have enough water to support anything, so it ended up just getting left. And then I jumped onto it in autumn, and it's now the basis of my 4 brand new beds, which are all planted up already. So with the right conditions, I was able to just really get a move on with that. So yeah, Nigel did a great job there. O is for Orlaya. This is a really, really pretty flower. I don't know if you're growing this already. This was the first year that I had grown it, that I knew anything about it. And it's so beautiful. And my wedding and event florist just could not get enough of it. She loved it. It grew absolutely beautiful. It's not the tallest thing in the world, but it's just so unbelievably pretty. And even the seed pods are really pretty, and it self-seeds everywhere. So I have it cropping up all over the place. And then I've also harvested quite a lot of seed. And then I think I bought some seed as well. I haven't even ventured into the seed box or the seed bag of boxes to see what's in there. But that is definitely something I'm going to be doing again this year. O is also for organic matter. We've got masses of this because of the chickens. So they have a deep litter system in their houses where I put shavings down, and then every so often I clear the whole lot out, and then I dump it outside, leave it in great big piles to just kind of rot down for a while. And then I wheelbarrow it down onto the plot and chuck it on all the beds. I don't bother digging it in, I just leave it and it sorts itself out. And chicken manure is absolutely wonderful. And you know, the tubs of pellets are really quite expensive. And mind you, my girls aren't really laying, so I'm just feeding them masses of food and no output. So the only output really from the girls is organic matter. So it's quite valuable considering how much I spend on feed for them. P is for podcasts. So I've talked about that. We're celebrating the 100th episode as we speak, and it's an absolute highlight of my week. I love doing the podcast so much. I love connecting with you. I love hearing from you. I love to get your messages. I love seeing what you're up to on Instagram. And I'm really looking forward to doing the podcast in 2026. And I've got some ideas that I'm going to share with you in the new year of what is coming up. Now, P is also for pricing, and I could do a whole episode on this alone. Maybe I should actually, so I'll just touch on it now. Pricing, when you're starting out, pricing is an absolute nightmare. And I struggled with this all year. Like, I didn't have a clue, and I was trying to be very professional with my florist. But I did say to her a couple of times, which is a cardinal sin, like you will go to prison if you say this. How much should I be charging for this? And she was very good, and she actually looked up some wholesale prices for me to give me an indication. But you can find lots of information on the internet, but obviously I'm not supposed to be benchmarking against wholesale prices, but other growers don't share their prices. So you just have no clue what anybody else is charging, what you should be charging. And if you don't have any data at the start, you can't work out your cost of production and your profit. So you don't really know where your stems should be sitting. So you can spend a lot of the first year just making it up and seeing whether the florist winces or not when you tell her a price. And if it's too high, then you can negotiate a little bit, or selling something and thinking, oh dear, I don't think I've charged up enough for that. And when I actually did my reconciliation in October, I'd done some crazy dynamic pricing as well. So some things got priced differently as the season went on. Now, some of it I think was to do with the quality of the stems and also the stem length, but I'm going to try not to do that too much next year because it just makes doing all the reconciliations a little bit tricky. But yeah, pricing is very complicated, and I don't know that when you're first starting out there is an easy fix to this, but I think I might do a whole episode on pricing actually, because I know it's a really popular topic. P is also for peonies. Now, I have dug up most of the peonies in my garden and taken them up to the plot. Peonies are one of my favourite flowers. I don't think between roses, them and roses, I don't think I could choose one. I absolutely adore them. And when I first moved into my house years ago, for some reason, I just bought an absolute load, probably because I was so excited that I had a garden and I could grow what I wanted. So they have been in for over 10 years and they are really nice, decent sized plants, beautiful flowers. And I'm not ashamed to say that I do go out there and I cover them with umbrellas if it looks like they're going to get rained, because you wait 50 weeks of the year for these guys and then they appear, and you can guarantee with British weather it will rain the day that they open. So I go out there and I cover them all just so I can enjoy them. I bought some, I think it was in October, I went to that peony sale in Oxfordshire and picked up some new ones from there. So I got one called Kansas, one called Duchesse de Nemours, and I don't think I'd have bought a Sarah Bernard because I've got quite a few of those myself. I'm not sure what the third one was. And then in November, I ordered some from J. Parker's. So I've got a few more. They're all in the ground now. And I'm very excited to see what they do next year. Yeah, it will be really hard to sell those actually, because I will be wanting to just cut and keep them. So I'll have to be really brave when it comes to selling them. Now, phlox. P is for phlox. And again, I had a plant at home that was just in the wrong place, and I took it up, put it on the plot, And my wedding and event florist absolutely loved it, sold quite a few stems on that, and it was very, very popular. And I should be growing a lot more. I have bought some plugs, some tiny little phlox paniculata plugs, which have gone in the ground. That could be what I was looking at earlier and couldn't remember what it was actually. So yeah, phlox, very, very nice, and yeah, very, very useful. So I definitely needed more of those. Q is for quarantine. So any new plants that come on site, they get quarantined. So if I've bought them from, say, I don't do this so much with the garden centre stuff, but if I get a plant from anywhere else, anybody else's field or friend, or anybody gives me anything, then I will replant it, quarantine it, and normally dump the soil somewhere not on the plot, just so I'm not bringing in anything nasty. I think it's always a good idea to do this because you just have no idea what's in the soil. Q is also for quiet. Now, it hasn't been quiet this year. It's been absolutely mental. And if you've been listening to all these episodes, that you will know that I have had various periods of absolute anarchy this year. Now, I'm very much hoping that 2026 is going to be an improvement on that. All my family and friends will just literally disown me, but it has been a lot. There is so much to take on board in the first year. And when you're in the trenches of it all, the only way is to just keep going. So you just have to make things work. But it has been bonkers this year. R is for Rudbeckia, and I have a couple of these. I've got some perennial ones and some annual ones, and they are lovely. I'm still not a fan of this sort of, I call it battery acid yellow, but you know what I mean. It's the classic Rudbeckia colour, and I'm just not a fan of it. But they are the loveliest plants, super easy to look after, and performed really, really well. And I sold quite a lot of stems of it. So it just goes to show you don't grow what you like, grow what will sell. R is also for roses. I've probably talked about them enough, actually. You've lived through all the drama of the roses recently. And I placed staggered orders over the autumn period. And then, as is typical, everything arrived all at the same time. And that sort of coincided with the period right before Christmas when I was running around like a headless chicken. So the roses have only just gone in now, but they are absolutely fine. It looks like some of the tops had been trimmed down with a machine. Some of them were a little bit torn, a bit ripped. I guess on the scale that people are doing roses, they are not going to be out there with a pair of secateurs. They're going to do it by machine. So I did have to do some cutting back, but it's not an issue for the roses. S is for a variety of very pretty flowers, actually. I've got snapdragons, sunflowers, sweet peas, statice, and then scabious, which I think might be my standout flower of this year. This is the flower that my mother came onto the plot and said, "Why are you growing things that grow wild on the side of the road?" And I must say, I had not realised. And then after that, every time I was driving around, I kept seeing scabious on the side of the road. Now, my plants were nicer than that, but I still have some that are flowering today, which I just find extraordinary. And they were absolutely beautiful. They really were. I didn't stake them properly at all. I ended up doing some corralling because I was so overwhelmed with absolutely everything that was going on. I did not get all my staking in place, and I did look at the heights of things. I did know what was coming, and then for some reason I didn't do anything about it. And these guys, a lot of them ended up having really wiggly, wavy stems, which I just loved. And I didn't have any complaints from the florists about them. They have real character. And I think if you're doing big displays like my wedding and event florist, she'll do installations, mantelpieces, arches, church things, all sorts of stuff. It's nice to have a bit of character in the flowers. Not everything has to have a poker straight stem. That's my line, and I'm sticking to it. The sweet peas were stunning this year. I have grown them in the past, and I've done the classic style where you make like a wigwam and grow them up that. When you grow them along 6-foot fence panels and you have 3 or 4 panels worth of them, the impact is absolutely incredible. Like, the scent was just phenomenal. They looked absolutely gorgeous. I didn't sell as many of them as I would have liked. That is a failing on my part, and I'm hoping that I will have more florists on board next year to buy them, because I did say this year that I will sell either, the shorter stems, or you can just buy the entire plant, assuming, of course, that I can get them off the fence panels. But the advantage of growing them up these 6-foot fence panels is that you didn't have to do any tying in. Like, they just literally got planted in toilet rolls at the base in a trench. They grew straight up the fence panels, and they did literally go straight up. Nobody deviated anywhere, and they tied themselves in. So I had absolutely nothing to do. The ducks took charge of the pinching out because they ate them. They didn't eat all of them. They ate about a third of them, while I didn't have enough protection for them. So those guys effectively got pinched, which was wonderful. So I had a comparison between pinched and non-pinched. I don't think I could tell you the answer as to which was better. They all flowered beautifully. So I can't wait to get the sweet peas on the go for next year. Could have started them in the autumn. Wasn't organised, wasn't ready, although I did buy them. And then I thought, I really don't want to have to babysit you for 4 months. So I'm going to start them in the spring, and they will be ready when they're ready. And I have a lovely new variety that I'm trying this year called King's Ransom, which I'm very excited about. It's supposed to be like the sweet pea to grow. But honestly, there are so many. I could spend tens of thousands of pounds on sweet peas and still want to do different varieties. They're just the most beautiful, beautiful flower. Tea, I've only got a couple for this now. I've got tulips, which I've just planted in my crates, and I have put a little video of that on the Instagram, and tomatoes, which self-seeded in all the wrong spots. So together with the fennel, the tomatoes have been the bane of my life. I didn't have the heart to move them because I thought, well, they're really happy there. So I just left them. So I had tomato plants just literally popping up everywhere. And ironically, this is the funny thing. Ironically, they flowered and fruited profusely. They were incredible. So bearing in mind, they've grown in a field. They have not been staked, not been pinched, not tied back, not stopped, not absolutely zero. And they just crack on and do their own thing, which makes me wonder what I'm doing, filling my greenhouse with these complicated bamboo cane structures, doing all the faffing about with do this and do that and stop them here and pinch this and blah, blah, blah. Left in the field, they were absolutely gorgeous. And it meant that I could just go around picking tomatoes off all the plants all the time. Whenever I wanted a snack, I could just eat them. Absolutely wonderful. Now, U is for, these letters get a little bit tricky actually. So I've still got lots to say, but U was quite tricky. So I've got umbellifer on my list here. The Ami were a disaster because they were too small, but they did go into bud vases. So they were a disaster if you wanted tall ones, but perfect if you wanted short ones. And then I had a fabulous pink one that was growing in the field, which is not a hogweed. It was just something else, and it was absolutely stunning. And U is also for underplanting. So I'm going to be looking into doing a lot more of this to try and maximize as much space as possible in 2026. So I've got a plan to put the Orlaya underneath the Rudbeckia and around the roses as well. Verbena bonariensis for V. Now I sowed this in 2024. It's been transplanted to a new section, Nigel's area. And I actually thought, well, it was supposed to be Cleomes. Cleome hasleriana, which I love. And it turned out to be Verbena bonariensis. And I'd always been a bit scared of growing verbena. I thought it was complicated for some reason, so I'd shied away from it. And then I managed to grow hundreds of the things without even realizing I was doing it. And they were beautiful plants and sold stems nicely this year. Not as many as I would have liked, but they sold. So I will get them staked in advance because they were absolute monsters. V is also for Verbascum and Veronica, both of which I have bought this year as tiny plugs. And they also may be something that's out there that doesn't have a label. This is why you must label everything at the time, because you will not remember what it is later. I'm hoping they are going to be really pretty flowers next year. W is for, well, water is the main thing. We didn't have any this year until we got to the autumn, and then it just rained for what felt like months and months on end. A really tough year, this one, and I left the tap on one of the water bowsers open in, I think it was April, lost over 1,000 litres of water in a night, and then we went straight into a heat wave and a drought. So you can imagine I was actually crying. I think I cried on the podcast, but I was certainly crying in the field. So that was a lesson to check all the taps and not get distracted by things. Really tough year for water. We ended up filling wheelie bins in the back of my other half's Transit, filling up the wheelie bins off his mains water, and then driving it to the plot and unloading the water by hand with buckets. And you can imagine how that went up the slope, until eventually he was like, no, I don't think we can carry on doing this. And then, of course, we had all the rains, so it was fine. W is also for white, which I'm growing a lot more of for 2026. I sort of shied away from whites. They can be a bit tricky, and if you've ever been to see the white garden at Sissinghurst, you'll know what I mean. For about a week, it looks stunning. The rest of the season, a little bit ropey. So the whites show up all the marks. They can go a little bit browny and just tricky. But I thought, no, don't let that put you off. Be brave. So I'm doing a bit more white this year, and we'll see what happens. Wednesday is, or has been this year, cutting day. So my wedding event florist would pick up on Thursdays. So I did most of my cutting on Wednesday morning, strip and condition and leave everything in the cool, ready for her to pick up on Thursdays. W is also for weeds. So I have a really eclectic selection up there. And depending where they grow, some of them can stay put and they don't really do any harm. And some of them obviously have to come out. The perennial ones, like the nettles, they definitely have to come out. Now, X, I had a real mission trying to find a letter for X. And in the end, I came up with xeric, which means very dry conditions. And that is definitely what we had this year, super dry conditions. Let's hope that 2026 is a better balance. Now, Y is for yellow. Not one of my favorite colors, unless it's like a sort of pale, buttery yellow color. I love that. But as I said, some of the yellows just horrible. And yield. So I have been able to calculate some yields when I did my reconciliation in October, but not all of them. I made the terrible, stupid mistake of only counting the stems that I cut and sold, rather than the stems that I also gave away to friends or used for myself or just composted because they weren't good enough. So I have to remember this year to calculate the yield of the entire plant and then be able to know how much of it was sold or composted or given away or whatever, not just the number of stems that I sold. And Z is for zinnias. Disappointing this year. I did so well with the zinnias in the trial beds last year. Didn't sell any of them, but I thought, wow, I'm so good at doing zinnias. Look at this. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Not a clue. And I had these gorgeous plants and they were beautiful. Didn't really like the colors, but that's just an issue with some of the colors that we have in the UK. I just think most of them are horrible unless you can get sort of the more American ones, which are bigger and come in these lovely pastel shades. So I was feeling probably a little bit overconfident when I did my zinnias this year, and they were just really not very nice. I think, well, in the end, they all got mildew because the conditions just kind of changed. And I did sell some of them, but again, not as many as I would have liked. And I think I will put them somewhere different this year. I thought I was being clever putting them where I throw the duck water out twice a day. But I think actually it just created the wrong conditions for them. And the place I grew them in 2024 was right in the middle of the plot where it was very airy, lots and lots of air movement, and it was fresher. So I think I'm going to shift them for next year. And I have bought different varieties. So I've got Isabellina and Cinderella for 2026, and we'll see how that goes. Z is also for I've put here for zeroing in on the numbers, because a lot of it is all about the numbers. It's about data collection, and it's about being able to know, for me anyway, what's profitable and what's not, because my mind plays tricks on me. And I think, oh yeah, that was a wonderful, wonderful plant. Yeah, I made lots of money with that. And then you realize that it took you like 20 hours to produce it, and therefore you actually made a loss, which is not what I want to be doing this year. So very focused on the numbers. I've been recording all the time it takes me to plant everything, all the setting out times, watering times, absolutely everything. It's becoming a regular part now. It is kind of in my brain now that I need to be doing this. And it is so helpful to be able to know how much time that you've spent on things. It should help enormously with the pricing, with the cost of production, to understand where I'm going and how much I want to charge in the business. And the final thing that I've written down on my list, this is going back to the letter Y actually, is you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I hope that you enjoy listening to all of the highs and lows and the ups and downs that I've had on the plot this year. And if you think to yourself at any point, if Lydia can do it, I can do it, you are 100% right, because I have been flying by the seat of my pants most of this year on an absolute shoestring budget. It's a miracle that anything got done, to be honest. But I have made it through the year, sold myself some flowers, made some profit this year, and got lots of plans for 2026. And I'm very excited to get on with that. And I will be sharing all of the details with you, as I always do. So let me say happy 100th episode to us. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for listening to the episodes, for all the comments that you send, and I am very grateful. So I wish you all the best for the rest of the week. It is New Year's Eve tomorrow, so happy New Year to you. Please do come back and join me for the next episode, which will be on Friday. All the best.